think of Hezbollah in its prime as organized crime, like mafia in New York in the 70s. They ran the city, right? You didn't build, you didn't open a business, and you didn't do anything on the streets without having permission and paying your dues to whoever needed to be greased.
Okay, we're here at the CUFI National Summit in Washington, D.C. We've been talking about it on the podcast for the last several months due to this amazing partnership we have with the Hagi family and Christians United for Israel. And finally, we're here. Our first interview is with the one and only Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus from the IDF. He's also a senior fellow with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Once they pan over to him, you're going to see his face. You know his face. He's been all over the television doing something that few people can do, which is tell the story of what's happening in Israel clearly, with conviction, with facts, and he really cuts through a lot of the noise, even on some crazy platforms that we might talk about today. He seems to keep online and be able to push forward what's happening and telling the truth, which seems to be a very difficult task for many people. So, Colonel, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure.
It was an honor, first of all, to meet you yesterday. I'm happy we got to share a meal, break the bread. I got to hear you.
And even at a kosher place.
Even at a kosher place, new sushi place in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
I hope it's the first of many kosher restaurants in D.C. I guess the second one in Washington. The Jewish community here is growing. By the way, under Trump's first administration, you can get kosher food at the Trump Hotel. But now they don't have that hotel anymore. We don't have that level here in Washington. I'm up here a few times a month. I just want to jump right into, there's so much happening and your perspective really is invaluable. I heard you speak today about several things. I want to start with one of the things you spoke about that jumped out at me when we're talking about Lebanon. When we're talking about Lebanon, we talk about Hezbollah and what's their role. Everybody knows that up until the war broke out, Hezbollah controlled at least a third of the territory of Lebanon and had a real stronghold over the government. Some people would even argue that they controlled the government.
It was the government.
Correct.
Yeah.
You said today in your remarks that we want to reach a time when Hezbollah can have no longer any military power, only political power.
Yeah.
Is that the position of the state of Israel today?
I think it is. And for people who haven't been following events in Lebanon, in the Middle East with tremendous interest, let's explain it like this. Think of Hezbollah in its prime as organized crime, like mafia in New York in the 70s. They ran the city, right? You didn't build, you didn't open a business, and you didn't do anything on the streets without having permission and paying your dues to whoever needed to be greased. That's how Hezbollah ran Lebanon. They were a state within a state that eventually became more powerful and had more weapons and muscle than the state itself. And then what they did was that they actually hijacked Lebanon and dragged Lebanon into their fights and the Iranians' fight against Israel. And that has proven to be very bad for Lebanon. It has brought destruction and it has brought a lot of war and suffering in Lebanon. And now what's happening is that the Lebanese government, for the first time, are saying things that you wouldn't have been able to imagine 2 years ago. They're saying it out in the open, and they're actually executing that strategy of, we're going to collect all the weapons from various armed factions in Lebanon, from Hezbollah, Hamas, the Islamic Jihad, and other rogue elements that have unfortunately been able to exist in Lebanon. We're collecting the weapons, we're consolidating power within government, and only the democratically elected government will have the power to use force. And only they, the government, will actually have an influence on foreign policy. We don't want Hezbollah or Palestinian terrorists in Lebanon using Lebanon and getting into trouble against Israel, because they say it clearly, it isn't our fight, it's someone else's fight. So what Israel is seeing, when we look on the other side of the border, we see Hezbollah being scaled back. Israel has done significant military damage to Hezbollah's infrastructure, but Hezbollah isn't done yet. They still have rockets, they still have lots of weapons, they still have operatives, they still have funding. But what's happening now is a positive process where I think there's the US and France that are involved and helping the Lebanese government do what's good for Lebanon. And then there's Israel implementing the ceasefire in a very kinetic way, as in a no-nonsense attitude of When we see Hezbollah violations, we immediately strike them. And over the last 4.5, 5 months, Israel has taken out, I'd say, anywhere between 25 and 50 Hezbollah commanders and senior operatives as they were trying to go back down to the south, as they were trying to salvage weapons, as they were collecting intelligence, and as they were violating the ceasefire. And Israel has changed attitude. It's a no-nonsense policy. You violate the ceasefire, you threaten us, there's not even a warning. You immediately face consequences. And that's what's happening. And what I hope will happen is that this process of supporting the Lebanese state will continue, and that through a political process in Lebanon, hopefully without any violence or bloodshed, the Lebanese state will consolidate power and gain for the first time sovereignty over their country. What that will mean is a much greater stability, and the Lebanese state will be able to communicate directly with Israel. I recently made a video about this a month or so ago, before the war against Iran, on our channel called The Bottom Line, where I spoke about the chances of peace between Israel, Lebanon, and Syria. And this was before events in Iran. And I think that there is such a chance. I think that the issues between Israel and Lebanon are negotiable. They're solvable. And I think that if Syria is inclined to be positive, and if Syria understands the tremendous windfall of investment and help that Syria will get from the US and from the world if they choose the path of peace, then real good things are possible. As always in the Middle East, we have to be vigilant, we have to guard ourselves, we have to have a very strong military posture. But I think the diplomatic arm, extending that diplomatic arm and hoping for good things to happen for the benefit of Israel, Lebanon, and Syria, it's there. This is, of course, something new. Wouldn't have said this half a year ago. I would hardly ever have dreamed it, 2 years ago. But here we are, and I think that's a tremendous development, thanks to battlefield success.
Yeah, it's clear that in the region, people respect strength, and the dynamics are different. We can't get, Israel can't get arrogant based on its success, because things will change. But I'll go to Syria 1 second, just one follow-up question on Lebanon. It's often said that the Lebanese military, while they have their conflict with Hezbollah, right, when it comes to dealing with Israel, they stand on the same side, right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend type notion. Are we seeing a change there also within the military, or is the military following the political class in this shift, or is that a different hurdle that needs to be overcome?
By and large, it is. And I think that what the Lebanese army suffers from, I'd say, limited leadership, historically speaking, no budget, and the fact that over many years, Hezbollah has been able to infiltrate into the Lebanese armed forces and influence it and basically coerce it in order to do things that Hezbollah wanted it to do, especially in southern Lebanon. We've seen how the Lebanese armed forces really acted as a conduit, as a go-between between Israel and Hezbollah. And when UN Security Council Resolution 1701 was supposed to be implemented in southern Lebanon, the Lebanese armed forces were kind of squeezed by Hezbollah, and they actively prevented it from happening out of weakness and out of the fact that Hezbollah was so much more powerful than the Lebanese armed forces are. That situation has changed, and today the Lebanese armed forces can actually sit up straight and say, you know what, we are the military of this country, and we are going to actually take control and implement our sovereignty. And that's what I think is happening now. It's a slow process. This won't happen overnight, because we have, historic memory of the weakness of the Lebanese armed forces versus the strength of Hezbollah. But I think with American support, with French support, and with Israeli non-interference, I wouldn't say support, but non-interference, I think things can go in the right direction. The challenges are that Hezbollah will somehow, find themselves with the back against the wall, become desperate, and start using force, violence against their Lebanese brothers. That could escalate the situation, and then I don't know how well the Lebanese forces will be able to respond and what kind of mettle they'll have. And that's a challenging situation that I think everybody wants to prevent, the Lebanese state, Americans, French, Israel, Syrians. And I think that the prospects are good. Even though Hezbollah has been very strong and powerful, the prospects are good.
So if I'm going to be very diplomatic to say French support has been inconsistent and comes with lots of strings attached.
Yep.
So hopefully they're not relying on this. I'm going to move on to a different topic.
No, but U.S. support is there, and that's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch. I'm going to skip Syria. There's so much to talk about. I feel like we have to schedule something where we have a longer form to talk about. There's so many interesting things. But I want to move to Gaza.
Yeah.
There's a problem now when we're talking about the hostages. And there's some hostages, former hostages and hostage family members next door that we've all come to know and become almost part of our extended family. And hopefully we'll hear from them later today here. There's a problem when dealing with Hamas. There's many, but there's one problem that I call the Hadar Golden problem.
Yeah.
Okay, which is many people think that if Israel just pulls out of Gaza, they'll just return the hostages, right? But we know that since 2014, Hamas has been holding the body of Hadar Golden.
Yeah.
May his memory be a blessing.
And Ron Shaul together with him.
Correct. Yeah. And others, and they don't just return bodies because they don't have incentive to, first of all, and they don't have the same value set that most people in the Western world have, if not almost everybody in the Western world have. So when people are discussing, what's the next step with Hamas, it's very hard to figure out what to do. Even people who talk about by any cost we should get back our hostages, and then they look at Hamas's last offer, if you show it to them, which was 1,100 prisoners for 10.
Yeah.
Right. So it's 5,500 prisoners released into Israel. For the hostages, they start questioning whether that's really something that makes sense for their own safety and security.
Yeah.
How does Israel overcome this final hurdle? I know it's an impossible question, but how does Israel at least approach this as the energy is behind Israel with its success with Iran?
Well, you're touching rightly on the most complex dilemma that we face. I think it's the most complex dilemma that we've faced since maybe since 1948. Hamas, through attacking on October 7, taking 251 Israeli hostages and then hiding them and jailing them effectively, they've created a strategic dilemma for Israel that, sadly, when I look at this through military eyes, when I detach my emotions as a father, as a husband, as someone who cares deeply about my brothers and sisters in Israel and about all humans, but first and foremost my people. When I look at it in a cold analysis, I don't think that Hamas will return the hostages, and they will do everything until it is too late before we get our live hostages back. And I say that with tremendous sadness, but I think that's the military analysis of the situation. They've had so many opportunities to end the war, end the suffering for their own people, for Palestinians, and to get out alive with some kind of mechanism, maybe deported abroad, maybe something else, but they would be able to essentially, the leadership would be able to get away, but they've opted not to. And they've made these outlandish demands. As you said, the numbers are just fantastic, like that doesn't make any sense. And the situation that we're in is, sadly, that more than 630 days we have Israelis in Hamas captivity. The state of Israel has failed to get them out so far. And I think, sadly, moving forward, I don't see any other way than continued but elevated, enhanced military pressure on Hamas, putting the squeeze on them wherever it hurts, and presenting a clear threat to their regime so that they know that it's either they hand over the hostages or they're overrun by their own people. And Israel, it took Israel, in my mind, too long before we created that balance. Now, for the first time since about a month, Israel is distributing food in Gaza and is, for the first time, detaching between food, Hamas, and the population. And that's a very important strategic move. I wish it would have happened earlier, but I'm happy that it's happened now. 45 million meals have been distributed by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, an American NGO working together with Israel, by the way, led by an American pastor, Reverend Johnny Moore. And that's a real threat to Hamas. You can see that they're threatened. It may be even more potent than what Israel is doing on the ground in terms of military activity. And at the end of the day, there has to be a viable threat against the rule of Hamas for them to actually say, you know what, we're done. We've had enough of this. Take your hostages and let's be done with it. We surrender. I think that's the only way that this is going to end. I think Israel has vested, jeopardized, and paid too steep prices in order to have this end in any other way but a total victory, a total defeat of Hamas. And I say this with a good understanding of what that means on the ground. I know what it means to fight. I know what it means for the soldiers who are fighting. I understand what it means for the families. I can imagine and feel the pain and the frustration of the families of the hostages who want to see their loved ones home, no matter the price, and I totally understand them. But at the end of the day, I think Israel has to, at the strategic level, end the war with Hamas only with the complete victory. It's important not only in terms of Hamas and the future of the Gaza Strip in Israel, but it's important for the entire region to see. This is what happens when you do an atrocious and barbaric attack against Israel. This is the fate that awaits you if you kill Israeli civilians, if you rape and murder Israeli women, if you butcher children, if you humiliate Israel, as Hamas had the audacity to do on October the 7th. This is what happens to you, and this is what happens to the entire ecosystem that supported you. Everything that was part of Hamas's mechanism must lay in ruins, and I think it will eventually.
Yeah, it's clear that Hamas, from my perspective, is misweighing the support that they have on the streets and some political support they have around the world in the impact that that's going to have on Israel. I'm just going to ask one final short question because we're short on time. We're here at Christians United for Israel's conference. Tell me what, from your perspective, from Israel's perspective, what the support from the Christian community in the United States means substantively for Israel.
I think it's been tremendously important. And I've been here, this is now my 5th or 6th time here at CUFI. It's an organization that I know from my days in the IDF Spokesperson's unit, seen their activity on the ground. I've seen their delegations in Israel. I've seen what they do on campuses. I've seen and understand how they lobby and work in Washington in order to promote their causes. I am in deep, deep gratitude for what CUFI has done. And I think that, if anything, this last year has been proof of concept. What CUFI has been saying, and CUFI has been marginalized and ridiculed and belittled by many, especially in the American media and by many other parts of the political establishment, as whatever, I won't use the names that they've said. But at the end of the day, what CUFI has been saying and doing clearly, with conviction, with a very clear moral compass, it's happening. It is happening, and Israel, I think, and I said it on stage, owes CUFI a tremendous debt of gratitude for being a steadfast ally of Israel, for supporting Israel, for having Israel's back in U.S. politics and making sure that U.S. decision makers know that, as AIPAC says, it's not only good policy, it's good for politics to support Israel, and that is what CUFI has contributed to. So tremendously important. I think the importance will grow over the coming years because we see tensions within the Republican establishment. We see people of Christian faith who evoke the Bible and Christian scriptures and try to say, actually, we don't want to support Israel. We're isolationists. We don't want to help Israel for whatever reason. And I think Pastor Hagee gave a very, very clear condemnation of that type of rhetoric and behavior, and I hope that will be the dominant voice in the Christian Republican community.
From where I sit in the American Jewish community, I shared this last night on Twitter, where, being here with the explosion of anti-Semitism in the United States in the last 10 years, but especially in the last year and a half, it's reached levels all over, in every corner in the country where there are Jews, there's anti-Semitism. Sometimes you kind of feel alone. I don't really like that attitude because I don't like the idea of weak Jews, and I'm not anybody's victim. But still, you do feel it's hard not to feel that way when the institutions around you are crumbling. But to be here and see 3,000 Christians supporting Israel and standing up for even for anti-Semitism on college campuses and in politics is really, really a great thing, and it strengthens me, and I know it does you. Thank you so much for everything you do. Last night in the middle of dinner, you stood up to do an interview with BBC. You don't stop, and I appreciate it. I hope you don't. Thank you so much.
We're on a mission.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.